What's up, everyone? All right, so in this episode, I want to talk about Icct, a stock that squeezed up today, made a really big move, 254% gain, change from the close, um, but is currently halted. All right, so I thought this would be an opportunity to talk a little bit about this move. And before I do, we can look at the overall market, S&P 500. Really strong day for the overall market. I didn't even check my long-term positions, my swing trades this afternoon. I don't, I don't check them every single day. Well, I check them in the morning, but I don't check them later. So, yeah, so a green day there for those positions. Pepsi, Procter Gamble, Coca-Cola is down a little bit on the day, but anyways, not that much. But the overall market made a nice big move, so that's great to see. The fact is, we had a really strong, you know, May, June, July, and then August has been a little colder because the overall market's been pulling back. So the overall market is a bit of a rising tide that lifts all ships, and this market pulling back made for a little bit of a more difficult month of August, with the exception of, I suppose, VFS, which for me was by far my biggest winner of the month. It was VFS, right? Let's see. ICCC. Oh, so this is, I'm on my Starlink, so let's see. Yeah, it said my internet timed out there for a second. So, this is unfortunately part of the deal with, there it goes. All right. So, anyways, I'm parked near a field. I'm mostly pointed northeast. Pretty clear view of the sky, but anyway. So VFS, this was the one that I by far made the most money on this month. Had some really good trades on it, although I gave back a little off the top. But in any case, still finishing in good shape on this. 5 green days with this big gap here, but today was a pullback day. Worth noting that it is on lighter volume, but it's a pretty big red candle. So with VFS pulling back this morning, I didn't take any trades on it today. I was like, no, I think the party's over on this one. Looks like looks like a head and shoulders coming back down. So I think I'm done with that. ICCT, I initially pre-market, didn't really think much of it. Some folks mentioned it, and I looked at it and I was like, yeah, well, I don't know. It's kind of a weird candle from yesterday. The daily candle's red, 11 million shares, but really sold off hard. So I was like, well, what's the setup on it? And this was a special acquisition company. Well, it was a SPAC merger. So a special acquisition company, blank check company, ended up merging with ICCT, which is or was an OTC stock. So by doing this merger, it allows iCCT to move up to the Nasdaq. And so commencing trading yesterday, August 28th. The thing about it is I like trading SPAC mergers, but I don't like, obviously, this sell-off. That's what I was not feeling great about. The thing that this has going for it is that it's a blue sky setup. So, you know, but it has to break over yesterday's high, which was way up here at 470. So you had this topping tail, and I just didn't really see it happening. Anyways, at the open, it squeezes up and halts up, and there's a mosquito in here. So I got you, son of a. So it halts up, and that was at $2.66. So, I wasn't in before the halt. Some of you guys probably did get in at that pivot of 222. Congratulations, nice trade. I saw some of our members did get in, which is great. So you guys understand these setups. I didn't take that trade. I was kind of just like, I didn't have any trades pre-market. And I was sort of like, I didn't break the ice with any trades pre-market. Yesterday was a nice green day. Maybe I don't need to push my luck. It's okay just to be patient and wait for the next one to come along. So I did a dip and rip on the resumption. I got in at 290, 290, 295. It pops up to 315 and then up to a high of 325. I sold, made 500 bucks, and I was like, all right, whatever, small green day. But I'm in Canada. $500 goes a long ways up here. And it's like US dollars. So I was like, no, 500 is good. That's fine. Yesterday was a great day. So whatever. And then I left. I went to go, I went to the beach and did some stuff and enjoyed the rest of the day. And then, so I missed this whole move. So this ends up curling up here. And I could tell you that when it came back up to here, this was the indicator that, when it was curling right in here, it could kind of go either way. This could just be sort of like a little bit of a bear flag that's going to descend, break to the downside. But when it broke back over 3 right there, and then basically double tops up to 321, and then it pulls back, you do have that red candle, and you know what? You even have that flush there down to 270. That's a 50-cent pullback. That's substantial. But then it bounces back up, and holy smokes, look at that. On that candle, 750,000 shares of volume, and it rips through 350, 355, 3 topping tails in a row. That's a little indecisive. Pulls back, and then rips up here to 4. Tops over 4, pulls back to 420, another topping tail, drops down, dips down to 350-ish. Big green candle, 500,000 shares, pops all the way up to 470. Nice. To 5. Pullback, very clean bull flag. Light volume pullback, blast through to 550, then all the way there up to 6. Now it's hot. Momentum's moving. Micro pullback, goes to 650 to 7, up to 750. Phenomenal. That's the top. That's the high. That's the high of day. It pulls back here to 550. I'd probably be the guy who chases it like right here at 748 and then stops out, a minute later. But I just sometimes when you miss these, you just like, if you miss a good entry, sometimes it feels like, where do you even get in? But you did have a couple of nice setups. That was a clean one right there. You had a nice micro pullback right here and right here. And those are probably the best. And that's when it really started to get going. That's when it got exciting. So then it comes back up, and right here, it's actually looking very similar, this pattern, very similar to what we saw back here at 321. All right, so if we go back here to this 321 spot, very similar. Kind of coming back up, and oh boy, wait, what's going on? And then it just stops. So what happened? It's halted. All right, so now we have a halt. So if you go into Nasdaq halts, which I will periodically from time to time. Where's my mouse? There it is. So you could see Icct halted T1. News pending. Trading is halted pending the release of material news. That was at 12:23 p.m. And it did not resume. It hasn't resumed yet. So now people are freaking out a little bit because there's people who are stuck. They're holding it long. There's people holding it short. They're stuck. They don't know what's going to happen. It halted at 564. So unfortunately, we're in this situation where there's rumors. People are saying, oh, it's, what's going to happen, and we don't know. So if we go to Icct and the SEC filings, we've got the registration. So this was securities registration termination. This so let's see. So termination of registration. The thing is, it's Pursuant to the merger agreement and plan of reorganization. This is confusing. So that was today. These are all old. That's all old. So registration termination. That's weird. Well, at this point, we don't know. And it could be the exchange halted the shares because they went up so much. They announced closing of the previously announced business combination with the FG Merger Corp, which was the SPAC. Common stock of the combined company will operate as Icct. Every 29.84 shares of iCore outstanding prior to closing will receive 1 share of the combined company. I wasn't even totally clear exactly what the float is on this. The market data, all of the market data vendors have different numbers for what the float is. So, at this point, unfortunately, if you're in it, you're stuck, and you just have to wait. And if it ends up, they say that there's, they're not aware of any additional news to support the 250% move, aside from the previously announced merger, then it's probably going to open lower. If they have some additional news, but the fact that the news hasn't been released already, to me, what that indicates, and just guessing, but what that indicates is that it was maybe halted by the exchange, and because we've seen this happen before. Usually it'll say halted pending, by the exchange, and they're asking for more information, but sometimes it says halted pending news when this has happened. And it's halted pending news, but they haven't put out the news. They should put out the news. If they actually had news, it would have come out like right away. That's kind of the thing. They don't just stay halted like this usually. So it doesn't look great to me if you're in it to the long side. Unfortunately, that's my guess, but I could be wrong, and we'll find out. I don't know when. Probably tomorrow, but I don't know when. So we're just in one of these situations where you really you hate to get stuck in a news halt, especially when you're stuck overnight. People who are stuck on the short side, they're going to have to pay borrowing fees until this resumes. So every day that they're short, they have to continue to pay borrowing fees. The borrowing fees on this today, when I looked, were let's see, they were 9 cents a share. So let me just take a peek here. That was early this morning, though. It probably went up. Had 44 million shares of volume today, which is a lot of volume. So the price went up to 18 cents a share. So people were borrowing at 18 cents a share. So if you borrow 10,000 shares, which isn't even a big position to me, that costs you $1,800 per day. It's going to cost you $1,800 per day to hold that position. So if it's halted for 10 days, you owe $18,000 in borrowing fees. If it's halted for 3 months, well, you're in well over 100 grand. So that's the crazy thing with these high borrowing fees, is that if you get stuck, you could end up paying more in the borrowing fees than you could even make on the trade, which really would feel devastating, especially if it did end up resuming at like $2, because you're like, I was right, but I still ended up losing money on it. So anyways, I saw some people asking about it, so that's my take on Icct. It's halted. I maybe suspect that the exchange halted it and is asking the company to issue a news release to explain the move. And so they're asking their lawyers. They're like, guys, write something up. I don't know. What do we write? And then they look at what the other companies write, and they say we have no material, news to report. And then usually they open lower when that's the case. That's what this looks like, because I've seen that before. But you know, you could always be surprised, and maybe there is some really good news that's going to come out tomorrow and it'll open at like $10 a share. And if it does, that's going to be crazy because that would be unexpected. But let's not get our hopes up too high. So that's iCCT. That's my review. I made $500 on it. Did not get stuck in it, which is always a great day when you don't get stuck in a trade. But only made $500 on it, so nothing really that exciting. $498 and you can see right there 18 cents to be exact. So and no trades in my my margin account. This is just my retirement account that I was trading in. So made some money in a retirement account, tax-free. That's good. And I'll be back at it first thing tomorrow morning. So hope to see you guys in the morning. Reminder, tonight is the last night of our Dog Days of Summer sale. So check it out over at warriortrain.com if you haven't already. And I'll remind you guys, as always, I hope you hit the thumbs up. Hope you subscribe to the channel. And don't forget, trading is risky. My results aren't typical. And there's no guarantee you'll find success. So manage your risk, take it slow, and I'll see you back here first thing tomorrow morning for the morning show.